Hello internet, it's me again. So before I go into this video, I just wanted to say that this is my personal opinion. Obviously people can have different opinions. I don't know if people know that, but let's just appreciate that for just 2 seconds. So these are books that I don't really love, and it doesn't mean that they're bad, and I'm not trying to hate on the book or anything. I'm just saying these are just 10 books that I personally didn't like, and I will say why, so you can find that out too. The pain. At number 10, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but is the 5th Harry Potter book, and it's the biggest Harry Potter book there is, and there's a lot in it that I feel isn't adding to the story, and there's a lot of writing to get to the point of something, and I feel like some areas of the book, for example, Sirius dying, is not really gone into great detail. And I was a little bit upset with that. But you know, it does in the way that how Harry reacts to it. But I did not personally love this book. And I do like Harry Potter, but not this one. At number 9 is The City of Heavenly Fire. And this used to be a series that I quite liked. The first 4 books were really good in my opinion, but as the series kind of continued, the books did get bigger and a lot of things happened that you were kind of questioning a lot of what was happening in the book. Some really disturbing things happened too, if you have read the series. And I am just not happy with how it ended at all. I think a lot of people are unhappy with how she went about ending the series, and it was just questionable, to say the least. And my question is, I know it takes a long time to write a book, but this was like the biggest book there was in that series. They went from going to like 300 pages to like 700 pages, like just like that. And I'm just like, whoa, calm down. And she was obviously a lot of like rushing was going through to get this one done. And I was not completely happy with how she went about ending it. Number 8 is this, which breaks my heart. It fucking breaks my heart to put this on a book, like a list of books that I didn't like. And sadly, this book I did not finish. Not sure if I'm ever going to finish it. If you think I should, tell me in the comments. But I feel as though with this one too, because it was the last one in the series, it was obviously rushed to get done. And it breaks my heart because I loved, and still do love, Percy Jackson. Like when I was a child, it was like the book that kind of got me into reading books. Like not one of the first books, but it was like definitely one of those books that got me into reading novels when I was a bit younger. And then he came out with this other series which had the same characters and a little bit of other characters in it, and I loved it until he went and ruined my favourite character and made him a whiny little bitch. And it just hurts me when like authors do that to characters. Like, why must they do this? What We Left Behind, it's very good, but there's some aspects of the book that bother me, only because I've been through experiences in which I've been on the receiving end of someone trying to work out who they are. This book is about a transgender person, but it's a transgender guy, and they have a girlfriend, but originally they were a girl, and this girl is gay. So it annoyed me in the fact that the person was taking, like, it's fine to take a long time to work out who you are, I understand that, but being on the receiving end of that person, you're sort of asking them, you know, who are you? And that person just sort of saying, can't you just, like, you know, not be gay, to this person is very, like, I don't know how to, like, react to that. So it wasn't that I hated it, it was more that I was confused by it, and sort of not knowing how to, like, take in that confusion and process it. At number 6 is Mockingjay. And I'm starting to realise a pattern now that I've started, but it seems to be the end of most books, like end of series sort of books that I don't really like, because it normally feels very rushed in the writing, and this one bothered me in so fact as she had the nerve to kill people. Like, that bitch. Even though the whole series is about people, like, you know, dying, and, like, that's kind of just how it, like, goes. But it still bothers me that it feels like she wrote off all these characters just because she could in the end. Like, she could write it so, like, they didn't die. Like, did anybody ever think of that? And in the end, like, when there's, like, Katniss and Peter, and they're sort of, like, you know, living in District 12 and with children, like, and stuff, I felt as though, like, sort of, like, it wasn't an ending. It felt like there was, like, so much more that she could have done, sort of just, like, she could have done this, and then sort of, like, you know, taken it from another person's perspective and done something totally different with the ending of this book, of this series, and she didn't. And she saw the opportunity and didn't take it. Number 5 is The Search for Wonderla. I think that's how you pronounce it, but I'm not quite sure. This book is just, it's actually amazing. But the thing is that it's going on the list because I didn't finish it. And I got that close to the end. And I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but when I was, like, younger, that was a lot of writing for me to read. The thing about books with me is that I really like, you know, visual stuff. Like, you know, sort of, not that I don't have an imagination, because I do, but, like, it's sort of like when an author has an idea of how someone looks or how a scene is supposed to go, sort of, like, it really helps you, and sort of, like, just like, oh, okay, that's what they were imagining. I was imagining something totally different. For example, there was this book one time that I, like, was looking at, and someone came up to me in the bookstore, was just like, do you know how the author imagined that octopus on the cover? And I'm like, oh no. They're just like, oh, well, it's about a kid that's afraid of the sea, and the octopus was supposed to be like this really tiny thing, sort of like really cute to get this kid to, like, you know, like the sea, and this sort of artist design of the octopus is just like this massive octopus, and this kid's just like, whoa, what the shit. And, like, it's kind of like in the way that you imagine things so differently when you were reading. For example, we talked about how in Harry Potter, Hermione is never really described, sort of like what her ethnicity, I can't say the word, but that is never described, and we were talking about it the other day in class, and how I, like, voiced the, like, thing, how she's never really described how she looks, and sort of, like, people can interpret however she, like, looks, because it doesn't matter. And even J.K. Rowling said it, like, didn't bother her, so why should it matter? But then, like, it's also, like, on the other side of things, it's kind of like comparing the octopus story is, like, completely, like, different, if that makes sense. Anyway, this book wasn't bad. It was actually, like, it's a trilogy, there's other ones. It was actually really good, but I just, again, it just felt like towards the end it's sort of like rambling about nothing. And I think that's what gets me about books. Like, you sort of have to have a really strong start, sort of like, you know, okay middle, keep me there. and then have a really strong finish. And like with some books, there just doesn't have that, and I find it very hard to stay attached to something when it doesn't have that. Number 4 is The Fifth Wave, and I've been told this book is actually really good, but I really couldn't get into it. And like, I don't know why, and it really annoys me, the fact that I'm just like, this book sounds really good, but why couldn't I get into it? It doesn't make sense, and I just don't get myself sometimes. But like, it sounds so interesting when you like look at the back and you're just like, the first wave took out 500,000 people, the second wave, and sort of just like, and I'm like, oh my god, this book sounds amazing, and that's why I picked it up in the bookshop, and also because the movie was coming out and I really wanted to like read the book and then watch the movie, but obviously that didn't happen. I didn't even finish this book because I think what bothered me the most is that it kind of jumped around a lot, and I found it very difficult to stay with the like story. I'm like, hang on, is she with her family or is she not with her family? And it's just sort of really like weirdly jumped around, and I found it very hard to follow what was actually happening. And I think like eventually I will come back to this book, but not at the moment because I have way too much to read and I have deadlines to get to with school. Maximum Ride? Maximum? This book was actually, it was good too. Like, I feel like I'm just gonna start, it's just like, none of them were bad. But, like, with this one, in books, I like to feel like I'm advancing and sort of like what I do is sort of just like, I'll just read to the next chapter and sort of like do it like that. And with this book, what I found is that the chapters were so short that I didn't feel as if like the storyline was progressing. Like the chapters were like 2 pages, like tops, and sometimes a little bit longer. But I didn't really feel like I was like advancing in this book, and it was like, it wasn't until the end when I'm just like, oh my god, I'm over halfway and sort of like way over and almost finished the book, and I was kind of like, this is actually getting really boring because I'm like, I feel like I'm getting nowhere but also somewhere at the same time. And it actually like, it really bothers me like when books like have chapters that are way too long or chapters that are way too short. I feel like you need to have like a very like common ground. And a book that I'm reading at the moment, Jasper Jones, which is amazing by the way, amazing, is like, it's really good, but the chapters are so long. Like there's chapters that are like 22 pages or more, and I don't know how people do it. Like the book is really good, but damn, like the only thing that's keeping me there is the story, which it should be. But anyway, but if like the story I wasn't like really liking, I would find it very hard because the chapters are really long, like really long, and I like to feel like I'm advancing in a book, and like when the chapters are either too short or too long, I feel like I'm not getting anywhere, if that makes sense. Number 2 is Eleanor and Park, and I didn't like this book very much. It felt like it's for teenagers, and like I am still one, so we can just deal with that. But I felt very confused by it because there was moments when I'm just like, this book is actually really good, and like, but then it would have a really low moment, and then it was like, it felt like I was constantly on this like roller coaster that went up and down. I'm so like, I was so lost by the end that I'm so like, was this book good or was it bad? Like it sort of like really confused me in that way, and I was like, I don't even know what this book is about anymore. Just teen angst, I think. I'm not really sure. I know there is a girl called Eleanor and there is a guy called Park, and they were together, but they like, it was very confusing in that way, and she was kind of weird and so was he, so they like bonded over that. But like, it confused the hell out of me. Like, I'm still really confused. I'm like going back and like, I'm just like, okay, so what actually did happen? Yeah. I don't know. I read this one a while ago, but I think it was just a roller coaster of like, I didn't know what was happening and like, was this an actually, like, good book, or was this, like, just jumping from one thing to the other, which I do, but, you know, none of my stuff is published, so I can't, you know, say anything about that. I'm probably going to get a little bit of hate for this one too, but it's kind of true, and I don't really care what anybody else thinks, because this is my opinion, and, you know, we can have a debate about it if you really want to. Anyway, so at number 1 is Paper Towns by John Green. This book began really interestingly, and it was like, okay, yeah, all this shit is happening, you know. You know, this is really cool. They're gonna go and, like, you know, prank some people. Awesome. Like, this is totally, like, not like any of his other books in which, you know, someone dies, or, you know, someone dies. I don't know. And it was really good in that way, in which, like, it was sort of just like, yes, something fun, you know, happening, and then the girl goes missing, and it's like a disaster, and you don't know what's happened to her, and you just assume, I don't really know, someone's dead. I don't know, I think you just assume that she might have died, but anyway. And then the whole book becomes about this guy wanting to know where the girl is, and I'm just like, why can't you just leave the girl alone? She obviously does not want to be found. And, like, you know, maybe she's, like, dead, but I don't think she is, because she left a trail of breadcrumbs. Anyway, I just found it really annoying that after the sort of, like, really good beginning, it became like a romantic novel. And I'm like, no! This is not what we're doing. We are not following the breadcrumbs. We're just gonna leave it as it is. And it annoyed me that it just, like, became about him finding this girl that he was in love with. And I'm like, why does it have to always be about the guy? Why can't it ever be about the girl? Why can't it be about the girl and what she wants? My eye is itchy. It's never about, like, well, I guess in Fault in Our Stars he follows that storyline. But it's never really about what the girl and what she wants. It's always like, oh, I love you. And it's just like, that's nice. Goodbye. Like, it's like that thing. I'm going to see if I can find it and put a still on the page. But it's like that thing. It's just like, I love you. And she's like, thanks. But, like, it bothered me. That, like, it was an amazing start and it just sort of, like, fizzled. This book, I didn't hate it. I just, hate is a very strong word. Dislike is closer. And what bothered me is the movie was probably even worse than the book. I probably should have mentioned that the scale, sort of like 10 were the books that I sort of didn't hate as much, and sort of slowly moving up towards books that I kind of like. I don't know, kind of like, sort of like number 10, and then sort of like moving up to books that I kind of didn't like as much. That's what I meant. Anyway, guys, I hope you like this. Please give this video a big thumbs up, because that's always nice. And, you know, if you want me to do more booky stuff thingies, please let me know. And, you know, I'll probably try and do a reboot of my 10 top books, because that has definitely changed. And, like, I've read more books in that time span, so obviously a lot of things have changed since I was like 12. But I'll see you guys next time. Please like, subscribe, because that's always nice, and goodbye.